Hello everyone, today is Saturday, the 2nd of November. I hope everybody had a good Halloween week. My name is Steve Vetterl, managing partner of FXESTrader.com. In response to a fairly large demand from members and a number of folks, I decided to shoot a review over the last 5 days using both a footprint with the order imbalance algo in tandem with the market profile chart. We had an excellent week of trading inside the room and there was some fantastic teaching examples, so thought it'd be best to do a replay. Before we begin, I often get a lot of questions from folks, who we are, what we do, so forth. Best place to learn about us is just going to the homepage of our website, which is just FXESTrader.com. You guys can scroll down to the bottom of the screen, take a look at a little bit of a bio on us, see what we do. You also could click on the testimonials page, or go back in, see what some of our clients or some of the folks on Twitter in the different areas are saying about us. You guys could also just click on the contact us page if you want to contact us. I often am asked for my email. It's just steve@fxestrader.com. I've also been getting a lot of questions about the new online course we've just completed and produced. So if you guys want to take a look at that, we're actually offering a special discount for the next week only on this course. We had just uploaded it to our Microsoft SkyDrive cloud, but essentially you just click on education, drop down to the private class mentoring. You can go through all the bullet points. It's actually a fantastic value. It includes some private instruction from us as well. You can just click on the buy now button or send me an email if you want to make a phone call to me if you have any more questions on the program. But let's go ahead and get into this. Just one note. In terms of the order imbalance algo, we are getting a lot of questions on this from its release from Market Delta in the summer of 2013. This has been a fantastic indicator on the footprint chart. It really allows to see what's going on. In response to the webinar that I shot for Mirrors Futures back on the 24th of September with Trevor Hartnett, who is the CEO of Market Delta. Trevor actually had a webinar on October 31st, just a couple of days ago, that I would highly suggest you guys go ahead and take a look at. And the easiest way to find all this stuff now is just go to marketdelta.com and click on their blog. You can watch the webinar. It's about an hour, and it is specifically about the order imbalance algo, which we use in our room each day, and I'm going to touch on multiple times throughout today as the trades develop throughout the week. Okay, so for all the members watching this video, as always, guys, I encourage you click on the member access button in the upper right hand corner of our website. It takes you to the members only section where I write a daily market analysis with some charts, just sort of getting us prepped for the days of trading. I do it for each of the 5 days during the week. Typically release this around 9:15 a.m. New York time. Want to see what develops in Globex before we go ahead and set up the potential trade scenarios for the day. But essentially on Monday, we're going to go through and just touch briefly on the review that I had. What were the 3 trade setups, or what were our 3 hypotheses for the day based upon a whole pile of information we'll use in our prep. So just keep in mind for the members and anybody that's interested, you can send me an email if you wish to receive a copy of our prep sheet. And this is it right here. So it's basically a daily trading homework sheet. Really gets you in the habit, hopefully, of taking a look at yesterday's day type, what numbers are important to know. Obviously we're looking for multiple areas of confluence as far as the where to trade. The footprint and our order flow will be sort of our fine tuner of the when to trade, okay? That's the important part. Again, I'll touch on that in the review, but you want to know the open types, the direction of trade, next day's trade expectations, hypotheses, whatever you want to call it. Where's the overnight inventory? Because boy, oh boy, was there some great examples of why knowing where the overnight inventory is as far as the last week totally helped you on a whole bunch of trades that we took. You'll see this is a big reason that I split my profile charts out. Okay, so we go through this for the ES and for those that trade the 6E, basically the same type of questions. The second page of this daily trading homework sheet is really just the kind of questions you always want to be in the habit of asking yourself throughout the course of the day. Essentially playing devil's advocate with yourself and all of the hypotheses that you may be building and augmenting throughout the course of the day. So top down both and bottoms up type questions here. Really keeps you focused on what's going on as far as any changes or impact to the context of the market, because it's critical to trading, as you guys know. So essentially on Monday we came in, and I'm going to go ahead and replay this here, but let's just review real quickly. We came in and we were, basically facing an all-time high in the futures that had been made in the overnight session. So, profile theory teaches us that, the odds of any particular move happening and sort of being the end of the move in Globex is pretty rare, okay? We have had so much movement off the 1640 bounce area, just around the 50-day moving average on the ES December contract, that we've created just a ridiculous amount of incomplete auctions all the way up, essentially for almost a 100-point bounce in the ES over the course of the last month. So we were already on high alert that potentially we're going to be looking to see some sort of reversal on this. But, as you guys should know, the market can be as irrational as it wants, much more than we can stay liquid. So, the overnight inventory was net long, and we had a prominent POC just below us. So I would have expected at least at this area to be tested to the downside. So a possible scenario would be that the market opens above this POC and drives upwards early, only to sputter and then start correcting the overnight inventory down to the POC and possibly value area low. Okay, so buyers, and the momentum and so forth. So the important thing here is that, if we jump over to, okay, so here we are looking at the profile on the left. Again, this is the ES December contract. It's the Z contract, and the footprint is on the right. Now, this may look a little weird to some folks, especially a lot of the members of the trading room, because what I've done is expanded the profile out. Typically when you're shooting these videos, and even though you're editing them in HD, a lot of times it's tough to see. Some of the numbers can be slightly fuzzy even in HD on this Camtasia. So went ahead and expanded out the profile here so everybody can see it. Explain a little bit about what our profiles look like. They may look a little different than some people's, but essentially if you're taking a look, you're seeing actually that the Globex session has already been formed. Okay, so this is the Globex Sunday night session starting on the 27th. Okay, and then the 9:30 session we're going to go ahead and replay live, and that's, as you can see, starting to form out right here. Okay, so just a little bit of background here. This is the Market Delta Pro version that's being fed by the Zenfire Engines data. This is being fed through the Market Delta Trader Dynamic Order Management, or DOME. There's a number of different types of feeds that you guys can have powering Market Delta, whether it be OEC, CQG, Zenfire. There's a number of feeds, but great thing about all the Mirrors clients out there is that, now the Zenfire engine will power both the DOME and Market Delta. So nice addition to, the potential of a lot of Mirrors clients to use Market Delta software. In any case, this is the Pro version. It has what's called the DTN IQ backfill, and you're going to see on a number of charts that I'll pull in front of the screen here that have a lot of custom written stuff and definitions and so forth in here, but I prefer to split out my market profile charts. So I actually want to see the Globex session form next to the RTH session for a particular day. We can glean a fair amount of information from splitting out the charts versus having them just merged as one session. Okay, so what do we know coming in to Monday morning's trade? All right, we already knew the inventory was long. Okay, we can see that in relation to Friday's close, which you don't see on the profile here. And just as a side note, when you guys go to do the, and you really can't see this window, but when you go to activate the playback window in Market Delta, just make sure that you have, the correct symbol changed. In this case, the ESZ3 contract. You have to play around with the playback times. And if you want to see the footprint, you actually have to change your historical data preferences to allow at least 5 to 6 days of tick data to come in. Now I'll do that for, Market Delta here, but I don't want that kind of data sitting around inside all the time. It just makes the software work that much harder having to pull all that kind of data in. So once I'm finished with the playback, I'll switch, at least in my particular case, the tick data back to either a day or two. I like to keep it sort of lean and mean instead of running, many days of tick data, which just bogs the system down. So just keep that as a side note. You gotta kind of play around with it. It can be a bit finicky as far as the playback, but once you get the settings right, the stuff it's awesome, and it really allows you to analyze the previous week. And I can promise you, of all the students we've mentored and coached over the years, one of the most helpful and beneficial things they've said we've taught them to do is to review the last 5 days with a playback. And you can see how obviously the auction market theory develops. You can see how the profile forms out. There's just a whole bunch of things, including all the setups that I'm going to mention to you guys today. Now, you may not be familiar with the setups and how they work or how they're playing out. You'll certainly see how they have done. But keep in mind, the online course is what's going to teach you the whole soup to nuts of how we trade these markets. So let's go ahead and just make some quick notes on a few things here, get you guys some good background so when we start rocking with this playback, you know where we are. The magenta bar that you see here is the value area. Okay, this little sort of hole inside that bar is the midpoint for the session. The brown bar behind it is bracketing out the volume value area, and both of these, as you'll see in the playbacks, will be developing throughout the day essentially, so they'll be moving around. The red bar on the far left hand side here is the initial balance, which we don't pay as much attention to in Globex obviously, but the initial balance area is measured in my profile from 9:30 to 10:30 New York time. So essentially grabbing the first hour of the pit session trade, and we use that for a fair amount of setups as we go forward. But in any case, I'd say don't pay as much attention to the blue bar in my opinion, because it's really the opening range. I don't trade using the opening range with the exception of what's called an outside in day. So if I'm looking for some sort of gap fill or to get back into the previous day's value, I may use what's called an opening range trade, although I augment it slightly from the normal market profile opening range trade. So let's go ahead and hit play. I have this set for 2 minutes, and let's see what develops. I'll show you guys what we took in the room as far as trades. Okay, so as the market begins to open up, okay, so as we're seeing the playback here, you guys can see the footprint on the right printing out, and obviously we're printing at a much faster speed so we can get through this review in a timely fashion and not take all morning. So essentially we're opening inside, we're auctioning, looking to, at this particular point, to go back and fill the gap. But we had the expectation that the market was going to rip up, so as you can see we're still forming the initial balance here. Market's popping up and the development and value area is going along with it. Okay, as we make attempts to come back down, still sort of opening and trying to get our way as far as an open auction out of range at this point still. Looking for the potential for this, at least is what I thought it was going to be, is an opened test and then drive up to the high of Globex. We had a number of ledges up here at the top of Globex that thought we'd get a pretty good chance to take out, so our thesis was changing for the day and looking to possibly take a short on this. Weren't really given a quick opportunity off the open, as you can see us developing here. We got a little bit of expansion of the initial balance. Okay, so we're beginning to drive up towards the high of Globex here. We're on high alert. You can see on the footprint there's a number of sell side imbalances building. Still thought we had a little bit higher to drive. Keep in mind, we had the expectations of an open drive. In this particular case, it turned into an open test drive, albeit I wanted to see better prices. Had come just to the POC of Globex. Okay, still bouncing around up here, and starting to build some volume out. Looking at 58. Okay, see the singles that formed and then came down and got filled. So they showed themselves, and then they sort of went away as an unconfirmed single. Still bouncing around. Couple guys in the room took a short on a very smaller size up there above 57. You could see as far as the footprint here, sort of the perfect scenario. We look in the room as far as a change in order flow showed its face. sell side imbalance at the top, capped with two black bracketed higher volume bars. So the retests against this were really key, really showing no order flow going off. And in this particular case, some of us got 3-point scales off this trade as best. It's continued to drive lower. And, sort of our outside in trade and almost full gap fill at this point. We were about a point and a half away at 17.52. We took more profit off. And as you can see, the market was just starting to bounce around. Now, also, let me just stop the playback right here. One thing to keep in mind is we use, and in this particular case, we were only a point and a half, point and 3/4 from gap fill. So I really didn't want to, but a couple people in the room took what's called a one tick of the IB trade. And this is particular, you can see how the F bracket printed one tick down there at 17.52, almost into the 2 ticks of the Globex session on the previous evening session profile here to the left, and started to see some reaction off of that. And let's go ahead and push play here so we can see what's developing. A lot of times when you have movements like this in the market. Okay, so you can see over here in the order flow, a little bit of a buy program hit right off of that retest again lower, a little bit of buy side imbalance on the 3 bars back that hopefully you guys can see here. This is the live in action order imbalance algorithm sort of playing out in real time. So it's going kind of fast, but that way we can sort of get through all this. So essentially we're moving into 11:30 here. Europe session has just closed. Okay, POCs you can see dropped down to 17.55. Those that took this one IB tick trade, especially if you ran the trade, you guys were getting paid on this. 3 points best scale on this as far as going up. Still chopping around as we come into lunchtime in New York. Notice the condensed value area that was forming at this point. Now we're beginning to lift off and come up to the session highs again. I was on high alert again for taking another possible short. This sell side imbalance that was showing up here wasn't really a great indicator to me. Maybe I didn't have a good eye on it at that point, but the triple TPOs was certainly of interest to me that it just formed. They took them out, continuing to auction higher in here. So I was really looking for better prices. I took a small crack here at 57. Didn't get much off the trade here, as you can see. Was really setting up pretty good. Didn't really like what I saw. Took a majority of it off at 56, and then came back and got stopped out at 57.25. We continue to move higher. Double TPOs at the high. Okay, so you can see how we're forming out in the profile and getting right under it. Again, I was looking really to just continue to take pop shots short, but we had been moving into newer high territory, possibly auctioning up to see, a higher high, and I was sort of sitting on my hands at this point. But you can see how the market's continuing. Again, capping this particular bar with a sell side imbalance, retest against it. Just people hitting the bid in every downtick here. Again, double TPOs at the high, so we're on alert for a possible one tick trade of that. Didn't get that opportunity as we sort of pop back down here. You can see the POC jumped up in terms of the TPO point of control, popped up to 57.50. So obviously anybody that was short, that was our first line in the sand to get underneath as the profile was forming out here. As you can see, more buy programs hitting, lifting us back up, coming right into the point of control of Globex. So again, we're still hunting shorts at this point, not getting much of an opportunity. Had a couple of slingshots in terms of getting long setups pull off. There's our one tick of the double TPOs at the high. Notice again, forming high volume black bracketed boxes, capped with sell side imbalances. Although this one wasn't that particularly large, really we're looking for an exhaustion type move. Okay, so some of us took the 17.60. I did not. I probably should have. Turned out to be one of the better trades, but you were really fast to get on the execution. Again, 57, holding us. Finally got underneath, line in the sand, ran some stops, and then they continued to hit the bid down here, soaking up, or say absorbing most of the selling volume that was coming through. And then 57 here, where you can see us chopping around, trying to take some stabs again back underneath the POC. Notice how the developing value areas expanded out a little bit, jumped a little bit higher to the top of the profile, and that's had a tendency to suck in some more sellers. So for a couple guys in the room that took the short off this, they were continuing to get paid quite nicely on this trade. And as you can see, we're moving into the end of the close of Monday. You can see how the trade was developing here. So the good thing about this, in the playback is things are moving faster. I feel like an auction guy trying to call this out, real time in, a little faster. But the cool thing about this is, you can see how we're moving around, and, especially you can see real time, or not real time, but you can see that the super fast playback time of, how this order imbalance plays out. And keep in mind, this yellow line is actually a new indicator on here. It's called a volume price statistic. It's really just interlinking, if you will, all of the POCs of each of the bars printing out. Okay, so what do we know? So we've got, fairly balanced, fairly neutral day. We spent a lot of time outside of Friday's area. We're up essentially almost 8 points on the close. The value area is somewhat, was expanded out, and now it has been concentrated or pulled in a little bit more. So essentially 54.50 and 59 capping the value area high, with the POC higher than the volume POC, which is much more prominent there at 57, which for the most of the day, I should say the most of the latter part of the day, was our line in the sand. So let's take a look at how Tuesday morning opened up in relation to Tuesday's Globex. Okay, so coming into the next session here, which was Tuesday the 28th, you can see here's Globex forming here. It's actually all finished, so I just went ahead and fast forwarded the replay. So basically at this particular point, with the exception of the 23rd October, the market had been one time framing higher since the 10th. Okay, so again, one time framing is really just a situation where the low of the previous day is not broken at all to the downside, and not more than by 2 ticks. So in that kind of environment, there's usually consistently higher highs, although that's not really a determinant of one time framing. It's just the lows need not be violated, in my opinion. So the 10th low, only one day is crossed below the prior day's low, so that's significant. Markins don't often one time frame for that long on a daily time frame. So we also know we've got about, at this particular point, 9 VOP stacked below us, which is also rare and indicative of overextension. So it's pretty much the theme I had coming into the beginning of all this early part of the week. And, I made it quite evident to the members, and a lot of my big followers on Twitter were in agreement. But, the problem is the market can stay irrational for, a lot longer than you use normal. So you just have to sort of wait and not develop a bias against that. But we had opposing POCs coming into the Tuesday session, just taking a look at Globex. So as far as the 30,000 foot view, if we look at just the ground level of what's going on in the last 3 sessions, one being the RTH of Monday, right in the middle here, it's coming into the Fed meeting, it was difficult to say, when things were going to go haywire and so forth. So, a lot of the setups typically coming into a Fed meeting don't have any near as high a win rate as they normally would, even though it may be an excellent setup. So, you're always looking to scale back trade size and be much more conservative in your risk reward, taking any decent risk reward ratios. So, even though there's still a clear lack of access to the upside on a lot of these profiles, the auction should end with a bang, not a whimper. Over inventory at this particular case is mostly net long. So let's go ahead and push play and see how Tuesday develops. And keep in mind, I've sped the playback up a little bit more on this one to 3 minutes. So it's going to go a little faster here. All right, so essentially coming into the morning of the 28th. Okay, you can see we opened right up near the top of Globex. I was looking to take a short pretty much immediately off this, but the market had, really just looking at this point to go for what's called an outside in trade. and we were all on high alert. It was one of our hypotheses as far as our trade setup in the prep for the morning. But we wanted to see this sort of play out first. Okay, so no surprise, coming into the Fed meeting day, we're in continue to barbecue the shorts and squeeze mode, in my opinion. But it was really looking like nothing more than that to me. Didn't really see any excess that told us, some bell was ringing up there at 64. So we sort of sat on our hands a little bit here and just let this play out. If necessary, we were going to sit on our hands all of Tuesday and Wednesday morning until the Fed decision was released. And in which case, the craziness which did ensue, we were actually looking to trade. So we were being real picky on trades. Didn't want to get caught in a chop up here. And as you can see, the value area is quite tight. It'll expand out a little further as we get into this. But essentially, notice the retest was a much better opportunity to short this. I know a number of us decided to take this in the room, including myself. At this particular point, we'd gotten about 2.5 points off the trade, off of this retest sell side imbalance. You can see up here the 259 by 1079. Initially, we thought we'd do much better, much quicker on this trade, but it took some patience to really get paid on this. So at this particular point, we're probably best scale out 3 points on this trade. Most of us have completely lightened up, if not gone flat on the trade, coming into the 10 a.m. hour. Okay, so as you can see how the daily delta at the bottom is continuing to roll over. The volume breakdown at the time was really stuck at a line in the sand right underneath here. We were looking really to crack and get back inside of Monday's value area, but we got rejected in our first stab down there with looked like little just of a reverse, but the volume in the delta was continuing to sort of bounce and looked like it was trying to roll back up. Again, a lot of the other indicators we follow was showing us that the order flow was starting to rotate up a little bit. So first stab down, essentially at this point looking to get another shot short. Ideally, the least risk trade would have been taking a shot at it up there at 64. So that's really what we were looking for. It's taking another crack towards the high of the day. So you can see here we are starting to rotate up towards the high of the day. Value area popped to the high of the day. Gave some that decided to front run that a shot to take it short again. Ideally, I was looking for better prices. Noting that, the first day of Fed day, again, concerned about just trade size and sort of the choppy nature we didn't want to get caught in. So our best scale out on that trade was a couple of points. Nothing to write home about at this point. All right, so as we're continuing to just sort of bust through the chop, note where obviously the two previous sessions in Globex finished out, and we had I guess about 5 points in the initial balance, so potentially looking to take a one tick, albeit really didn't have a lot of faith in a lot of the trades that were developing. We got lucky on the first one, in my opinion. We could have raced up a lot higher. Really ideally wanted to see us go up and test, as you can see, scroll back here, the test of Globex high from Sunday night session. Okay, so just looking at the footprint again here, where you can see how the delta really rolled up to almost flat on this approximately 3-point move on this bar right here. And again, every time we're getting up towards that 63 area, we're seeing rejections with small to mid-sized sell imbalances, and then just dropping back down inside the chop again. So we had a contraction and an expansion of the developing value area on both of these. Really just looking for an open auction outside of of range, and the day type just developing to be a neutral balanced type of day up here, but outside of the previous day's value area. So again, taking another crack up at the top here, coming into lunchtime in New York. really just sort of choppy trade. A lot of us sitting on our hands at this point. Noting that this is our first attempt to the day to go positive on the delta for the day, which we did. So with a lot of this movement here really just had a run type of look to it. So essentially, okay, so you see the singles that formed there at 64.25. They went away, but the singles by definition, until we get down to 63.25, weren't filled. So they were still holding, even though you see that the line went away as we're continuing to bounce higher. Now, as we were coming outside of lunch here, again, just looking to short this, looking for some sort of definitive. Took a couple of cracks at the top. I didn't get much off some of these trades. Some of the other members did as well. I think we got a couple of ticks, and a couple of them we got stopped out by a tick or two. And we took another shot back up there, just under 66. Got a couple points off it. Some of us held for longer. Some of us didn't. And you guys could just see it sort of chopping around again here. Really didn't see, if I actually stop the playback right here, guys, take a look at the footprint, okay? Ideally, at the top here where this 1766 fractal printed, you really want to see an imbalance. I mean, it is a pretty big hit on the offer, whether it's a couple of trades or a compilation of many. You really ideally want to see a little bit more of what I like to call an exhaustive or a burst of move like this. And in order to try and short the highs, I mean, if we're just grinding up and pulling back a couple points and then grinding up, it doesn't really make for a good scenario to trade. I mean, you're technically still trying to trade the chop. So, I mean, ideally, I want to, see something where you had just a huge stop run, the tick spikes up, a whole bunch of the other indicators spiked and in many cases diverged at the top. In order for it to have had an exhaustive bar move, in my opinion, which we'll see a whole bunch of examples when we get into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, which were much better trading days than the Monday and Tuesday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, in my opinion. So, looking at just the top here, I'll go ahead and just push play, just get through the rest of this. So a line in the sand at this point is 1763 for the shorts. Got to get underneath that level decisively. Still continuing to test the highs. I've really had a rip the shorts feel to it, quite frankly, coming into the afternoon session. I was still hunting shorts, as I had been all week. And pretty decent sell side imbalance right here, okay? This is kind of the stuff you want to see. High volumes at the top of the bar, capped with a sell imbalance, bracketed out in black, okay? The retest again, showing that, we're still trying to test against it, but the problem with this is the delta for the day and the volume breakdown had continued to roll up and continuing to increase, as you can see down here at the bottom. It's what's called delta day. It's a cumulative number that allows us to, sort of track what's going on. But, a lot of people just sat on their hands, fairly choppy. And, hey, nobody's going to blame them. And we had a couple of missing notches in the profile here. You can see that just got filled. And that popped us back up. So sort of building out again, another neutral day. Again, here we are coming into the 330. And we'll go ahead and forward this. You guys can see what happened in Globex. Essentially getting prepared for the best part of the trading week, which is the last 3 days. Essentially after the Fed decision. Unleashed the wolves. It was great. So double TPOs at the high. We're on alert for that potentially to get taken out, to be one ticked. Maybe take a shot at a short on that. But it's getting pretty late in the day. So now we have triple TPOs at the highs. So we're expecting that to get taken out. And sure enough, we had a stop run. 3 ticks at this particular point. So look at all the volume that's coming in at here. I mean, the short's just getting squeezed on this, okay? So 66.25 being where the singles formed. As you can see, they were unconfirmed at this particular point. As we're coming into the cash close of the S&P, notice the singles are still unfilled, even though the line went away. So you want to be cognizant of that as we're coming in and watching, the Globex session form out. And I'll forward this past Globex, and we'll begin to do the Wednesday review next. Okay, so coming into Fed decision day on the 29th, into the morning of the 30th, really looking at just the Globex, you can see, guys, here again, spreads between both the POC on the volume side and the TPO sides fairly wide. Okay, so we spent all the time as far as the regular POC down at 67.25, but the volume was up there at 72. So coming in with overnight inventory net long, I was basically looking to short pretty much right off the open. And we got an opportunity, as hopefully you can see here on the right-hand side on the footprint, right inside this area that I'm circling with my cursor, had a sell imbalance capped with a black bracketed box, and essentially the retest up against it is where I took the short at 1770. Okay, again, just hunting shorts all week was really my theme. And I guess unbeknownst to me from the previous couple of days is, just a lot of incomplete auctions, as I'd mentioned again in the review for the members only section. Just, we're looking to basically hunt it. So at this point we've gotten, approximately 2 points off of this short. We really wanted this to work pretty quickly because Fed day, typically you have a grind up into that particular. Now, we had already had, at least in my opinion, that move. So I was looking to potentially see something different. And, normally you have a move up into Fed day. At least that's been, mostly the mantra of this year. So I was actually looking for something different to happen. And that was, not really a trade setup, obviously, but as far as the hypothesis I was building, we're opening and auctioning outside of range here. I really wanted to see that, potentially play out. So let's go ahead here and push play. Okay, so just auctioning in here. We're looking to get scales off at 68. We got filled on that. We got filled on the 67s. So this was actually turning out to be a pretty decent trade. Again, a little bit of a stop there at the POC. But in this particular case, it was beginning to looking like a open auction out of range. Not when we were actually hoping for a test drive lower. Okay, essentially testing higher and driving lower here, and took a little time. And again, just the choppy nature of any big important FOMC pre-meeting, trying to get out to. As you can see, as far as the delta, we were mostly flat as far as buy versus sell volume on the day here, coming into the 10 a.m. And really looking to get a gap fill, and we had that, and really looking to begin to drive lower now to get inside of the previous day's value area. So, again, I was hunting that outside in trade. There was a bunch of other stuff, up towards the top as far as the Globex view. But I was looking for us to get back down inside of the previous day's value area. We were sort of fighting that every time we came down here, coming into, we weren't getting sort of down into that area. Okay, so we were finally starting to get some movement coming into the close of the initial balance here. We got to 66 off. We were looking for essentially us to break through the 64.75, which is the previous day's NPOC area. And notice that was quite tight with that looking to be, essentially get most of this trade-off in front of that in anticipation of the Fed decision, which was coming at this particular point in about 3.5 hours. So, just trying to manage a trade, we're looking to see obviously more movement downward. And you guys can see here on the footprint, each time we've ticked higher on the next bar, successively printing up towards the top, there was no order flow going off. This particular bar was our first to test, but again, was capped with a sell side imbalance at the top here. That 204 by 1124 you can see right here. Again, testing up against it. Notice this is the first bar where we're seeing some buying coming in and beginning to push us up. Can't read too much into this, nor will I. Just sort of let this play out because this is, this is just before the Fed. So I mean, can't really read into this crap. It's choppy, it's whippy, and sort of flashy in nature. But one great thing about these playbacks, folks, is that they force you to be able to make decisions fairly quickly in what I like to call playback time. So you can sort of just play it out, be like, okay, I would have taken the trade here, I would have gotten stopped out here, or whatever. But essentially, I'm still short. So it took a long time to finally get a decent move out of this. And notice the double TPOs ledge up there just above. Value area high expanded above that, and that hopefully has sucked in some long liquidation, and we've begun to hit that. So we took the scales off at 64.50. This has actually turned out to be a pretty decent trade for those that had kept some contracts on as sort of a runner, if you will. And coming right into the close of Europe here, into the 11:30 turn, which is often an area of final liquidation. Okay, getting back down inside, and my anticipation was to hit towards the low of the value area, so I was essentially going to have most of this trade off just in front of that area. 61.25 was one of my final scales on this particular trade. I never got filled on it in G bracket, so I was hoping to get a fill on this in H. Notice the big turn down in delta. Okay, so it's been pretty rare this year to see long liquidation in front of the Fed meeting. It's typically been squeezing and accumulation into that. So our thesis played out exceptionally well into the decision. See the singles that formed there at 63.25. All right, we still haven't filled those singles, even though the black line's gone away to denote the area. They have not been filled. So just coming into the bottom of this, and what are we, 1, 2, 3 ticks away from value area low from the previous day. Couldn't quite get there. Entered into the lunchtime chop hour. Notice the delta for the day during this, I should say during the 5 bars of this chop. It's pretty consistent. We saw it roll up a little bit on this current bar we're on now, up to minus 15,000 cars. I mean, no surprise. Singles are actually filled now, so they didn't play much importance. Not that I would have expected it to, because it's Fed. So here we are coming into 1 o'clock. We're getting prepared because the release of the notes, we figured there'd be some absolute wildness ensue. And keep in mind also, guys, if you want, you can actually split these charts out if that would help you understand how these brackets form and how the auction plays out throughout the day. You can actually just open up the bracket, or I should say open up the little window on the side there and split the charts out. All right, so basically I was looking to get flat. I didn't really want to have anything in front of this Fed decision. It's actually turned out to be a really good trade. So, we were mostly flat at this point and getting down. Notice the 1 tick, I should say 2 ticks at this point, of the previous day's value area low. Some were looking to hold all the way to the yesterday's low, which is fine. I think it's just getting a bit risky here. Now we've got a 3-minute per second playback on this footprint, so you guys are going to see this get a little wild here as we come into the Fed decision. Now let me just stop this right here. Okay. Now, with typically these Fed moves, I always, look back historically and see what's gone on in Fed days, you can go to mypivots.com if you want and actually subscribe to what's called the Fed Historical, so you get an email each day or each Fed meeting that shows you what's going on. I think it's like back 20 years or some nut-nace number. But you get a really good idea of what happens once the decision's released. And oftentimes the case is the initial move is faded. So as our members in the room are developing sort of hypothesis for the day, a scenario we really wanted to see play out was a rip up and just fade it. Okay? And it was going to be the kind of move where, as hopefully you can see on the right hand side here, you didn't have a lot of change in what's called delta for the day. Okay, you can see we've moved a lot here, but we've had what I like to call skip prints, meaning that not much went off. It's almost like we skipped through it. In some cases there'll be a 0 in here. Not normal, but there actually was during the flash crash. There's a whole bunch of zeros. But looking at, notice how the change for the day in the delta, not only did we rip 5 points, but we didn't have much change in the net. Okay, still decidedly negative as far as buy versus sell volume. And also, if you are to look at the playback in your other indicators, they weren't really ripping up either. So as the decision comes through, we basically want to hit this and hit it hard. Okay, I mean, ideally we would have liked to have seen this much higher. Okay, but there was a lot of volume that had gone off right around the midpoint, especially on our previous stab up here. Okay, so looking for exactly what played out, and this is what I call an exhaustive type of squeeze, or in the reverse situation, a long liquidation. I always want to try and play that, and you never really know if it's the end of that move if you're trying to play it while that bar is still building. And keep in mind, this is also a big reason why I use a 5-tick point in reverse, because if we can't even reverse 5 ticks off of some big move, which you guys are going to see a whole bunch of examples of as I play out the next 2 days, it shows the strength of the move. Whereas if you just look at the footprint in a range bar, there would be 100 range bars after the Fed decision's released, and most of them and what they've told you about order flow have already completely moved off the screen. It's for the same reasons why I hate time and sales streaming. Okay, most of the data's gone off the screen by the time you get to make a decision on what's going on as far as order flow. You missed it. So this is one reason I want to see a reversal. So whether you're using a 4, 5, 6, and some other number of a reversal, the point is that it shows the power of a particular move, in my opinion. And you'll see a number of examples throughout the course of this on here. And I know we're getting a bit long-winded on this, but just bear with me, guys, because we got 2 more days. We'll cover them quickly, and hopefully we can end this thing right around an hour. All right, so let's play this out. All right, so we're on high alert. Buttons are ready to click the dome. We're taking a shot at this short right here at 66, and it paid super quick. And some of us got filled, like myself. But ideally, just a quick hit on this, because I was fully expecting this to just be a rip down. And so it was a quick hit short. And a number of us were +5 already on this thing. Could have squeezed up a little more. The more conservative folks in the room, which is fine, I would say, let it sort of play out. Another stab back up there. I was willing to take it again. As far as this, I just thought we were really overextended coming into this Fed decision, so I was looking to see some sort of reversal. All right, so we're moving into, and keep in mind, this is only 4 minutes after the Fed decision. So it was really showing us as we got up towards the 65, 66 area that, it had a potential to be quite flashy. And some were really waiting for it to go much higher. and get all the way up towards the high of the day. I didn't expect that to happen, so I just was on alert to, keep taking pop shots on this. And it looks like a number of folks in the room at the time had taken a shot. 65 was really proving to be a bunch. So for those that got short in that area, it was actually pretty good. Okay, we're starting to see the move that we were anticipating as far as jumping and dropping down. You could see that we hit just a big area liquidation. I mean, look at the daily delta. I mean, we're all high-fiving each other on this trade at the time. And, that was pretty much it for the good trades of the day for us. I wouldn't have stepped in front of this. Best scale out for me on this trade was 8 points. There were members in the room that got much more than that. I didn't have large contract size on this trade, so didn't really have a lot of scales left, to be hitting a home run down here. But a number of folks in the room had put in 20 and 30 car sizes on this, and these guys hit some big numbers that day, which was great to see. So, the liquidation we were really looking for, and just playing out. Got a pretty serious bounce and a nice slingshot on this as well. So on this retrace here, for those that took a shot at the 57 area, which was showing up on our trade signals, they got paid on this as well. So I took a small shot at 57. I think a good chunk of our room was short 57 on that retrace. So paid 4 points, best on this move for some of the first scale outs. Really looking to get back down underneath 73 and get some more significant movement out of this, and we sure did. So we got paid nice again. That was what's called a slingshot setup, which is really just a retest based upon a number of our proprietary indicators that showed us that, and straight paid all day. So not gonna bore you with the rest of the day. Actually, the second slingshot that just formed there as well even paid, but we were really getting a bit long in the tooth on this exhaustive move, in my opinion. So I was really looking for a much more significant retrace to take and to come back up. So we had, and look at the delta for the day on this move up. We had big volume building in here. I mean, just huge bars coming in as far as volume on this squeeze, and again, 57 posing a nice resistance on this move up, the first two shots. Okay, again, pay attention to the daily delta, pay attention to the structure as far as, this wasn't showing perfect, but all these shots back up to the 57 area kept paying. So we were sort of ping-ponging between 53, 52 at the extreme, and the 57 area. So there was a number of shots to take it depending upon how many trades you wanted to take against this area. You had to be quick. You weren't getting the best executions. Quite frankly, who cared? You were really in sort of riding the coattails, in my opinion. I was telling everybody in the room, don't be picky. Just be on the bus. We've now had, 2-3 winning trades depending on the members trading at this point. So I was looking for a more significant retrace on this. But again, the 57-58 area is posing to be resistance, which is quite easy to see in a normal candle chart, which you can see on your candles. I prefer just to, look at the order imbalance algo starting to rip a buy program now, and just trying to retrace a significant amount of this. Really didn't see any reason to, get caught in any of this. We'd had a really good day. There were a whole bunch of other trades to take, but we didn't take any of them. And just so you guys can see how Wednesday's close played out. I mean, it was for those that were steadfast in looking at the indicators we use to trade, both the Keltner channels and the 200 hook showed themselves that they're up there at 60. So that trade actually played out. So at this particular point, 3 points best off of that setup. I mean, it was really just trades galore in the room on Thursday and Wednesday and Friday as well. So Okay, so coming into the close here, cash close Wednesday afternoon, post FOMC decision. Yeah, obviously the Fed did nothing. We'd had a fairly significant volume day here, no surprise, and just sort of chopping around, forming a little bit of a wedge. I didn't really think anything more, but I was expecting much more of a squeeze. A lot of us were looking us to ramp all the way up the entire profile the whole day. I wasn't seeing that, but you know, both of the slingshots that showed paid, and that's what's important. You could see sort of the zigzaggy nature, by the way, of the yellow line indicator, really just going from POC to POC, and I use it to sort of compare to develop not only trend lines but potential lines in the sand of, you know, where. So we're just chopping around into the end of the day, and had a really nice move from the highs. So as oftentimes is the case, and you know, we've had a really good summer in the trading room in fall. You know, we have a tendency to get much pickier on trades as the day plays out, and hopefully you guys, this tutorial and review on the last 5 days of the markets playing out and teaching you, you know, sort of all this. The problem with the play out is things move really fast, but I also think that gets you in a much more quicker decision-making time frame. Puts you in a little more of a quicker decision-making mode because the days of the 10-point clips are going to be back. Okay, so here we are opening up Thursday morning the 31st, and in the review I basically said that overnight inventory was short. Okay, looking for, if you were to merge these two profiles together, it looked like a B-shaped profile. So I was really looking for a rip off of the open, potentially to 61 and a half area. Be willing to add essentially all the way up to 62 and a half, but really wanted to stress to a lot of the members that we could see a pretty quick move, a sort of an open rejection reverse, and try and get down to some lower levels. Now at this point, you know, we were pretty much figuring that the 50 area, I should say, would hold us as far as support, and that actually played out to be the case most of Thursday and Friday. So it's a pretty big area. There's a whole bunch of stuff down there, and so we were really looking forward to any trade that we took short, ultimately to have the vast majority of the trade-off in front of the 50 area. So our scenario coming in Thursday morning is we've had a good week. You know, I had a couple of small losses in the week, but I had a whole bunch of big wins. You know, 3 5s, in some case 8 pointers. So I wanted to be much more picky on the trades that I took. I was just looking for an extreme trade. I mean, ideally I wanted to see us rip up to 61, you know, on an open drive or an open test drive and take it short. All right, so let's play this out here. Thursday was one of my best days in about 3 months, and this is just fantastic. So we're on alert, and you know, I'm pretty much ready to click the dome on any rip, as we were expecting this inventory to be shaken out. That was you know, quite short. Essentially rip it up. So still opening and auctioning inside of range, and looking for the, you know, some sort of excess to move out. Took a little while. You know, again, we're only at, you know, approximately 9:45 right now, but we're on alert now because here it starts to move. Notice the value area was jumping up at the high with us. Jumped up to the high. It's the kind of stuff you want to see for a short. I wanted to see some better prices here. Okay. Ticking up again, ripping it off. All right, so I'm short right here, 61 and a quarters. Value area just jumped up. Took scales off at 60. Still looking for this trade to hold. Okay. we're bursting around up here. Starting to see a change in some bigger selling pressure. Okay. Got the 58s off at this point. It's pretty heavy on trade size here. Got the 57s off. I mean, I was literally taking scales each point down on this move. So we had a open, what it appeared to be an open rejection reverse. Okay, so I was really looking for us to go down and hit. Got the 55s off. I think it was my next scale, if I'm not mistaken. Was really looking for us to get back down to the bottom. So under 54 at this point, I had a majority of the trade off, and was really seeing an exhaustive type move, as you guys can see over here on the footprint. So I was really looking to have, the majority of this trade off basically right here. And so a lot of home runs on this particular trade for a lot of guys in the room, which was great. And we just wanted to see an extreme. Little did we know what happens throughout the course of the day. We get another gift, which was awesome. But essentially we knew the 50 area was important. It was probably going to hold on the first stab down, as we've seen. We just chopped around for a while here. Okay, so note I've sped this up a little bit here as we move down. I'm basically flat at this point. Okay. Coming into, it's only 10 a.m. still at this point. It's great. Some of the guys in the room had, 7, 8, 9 point runs off this. Majority of us were flat. I didn't think we'd bounce all the way up like we did, which was just awesome. So keep in mind, again, value area high on the volume side from the previous day was 65. It was actually a whole bunch of stuff up there in the 64 to 65 area. So if you're thinking in terms of risk reward, which I always advocate in trading, you want to take the extreme trade. So if you really want your highest win rates, just take the extremes. And in this particular case, we were actually at an extreme. So it was a valid long down here that a number of folks in the room had taken. Okay, I wasn't, and by the way, notice both of those slingshot retraces, and this is more directed at the members that run my trade systems. They both paid. So your little retraces, you could have taken shots, and if you were in scalp mode, gotten a couple of points off them. I was really looking to just take extremes at this point. Now notice we're seeing a buy program hit here. This is what I like to call the power of threes on the order imbalance algo. And we moved up a little bit. Again, it was another slingshot up underneath the VWAP right there at essentially the 55 area. Some of the guys took that again, got paid, 2, 3 points, which was great. So here's our first stab down at the all-important 50 area. Okay, we noticed the rejection off that. Nothing great on the buy side, but we were expecting some dip buyers to come in at this point and to buy that. Okay, some folks took longs. Both were valid setups. You had both a Keltner channel touch 200 hook in addition to a big support area to take the long down there. And we popped back up. And you keep in mind this is moving a lot faster than it normally does. Notice it's still only 10:40 in the morning. So, we're essentially, kind of harking us back to the days of the ES making 10 and 20 point clip moves in, 10 minutes, which is awesome. So guys that were on this long, really getting paid here. And, I guess little did they know they would really get paid as we continue to move up. Okay, so fast forwarding to the good parts here. We ground up the profile all day, much to many people's extreme and surprise. The very flashy nature of the move here on the footprint on the right-hand side, follow my cursor, from 60 all the way up. We had made a big turn, run a whole bunch of stops. But here's the beauty of Thursday afternoon. We had guys, and write it down if you need to know what it is. You can send me an email if you wish to see the document on this, but we're looking for a symmetrical neutral setup. Okay, and let me be clear, this is a rare market profile setup that has a very high win rate. So essentially, we had a fairly long, elongated initial balance. Okay, notice we 3-ticked the bottom of this, just a little bit of range extension, came all the way back up the profile, and then above 62.25, we were basically looking for 3 ticks. Okay, we actually got a little more than that. Okay, but I didn't really care. I was going to take this trade. Notice it came right to the POC. I should say we ground up. And this is into the a little bit after 2 o'clock New York time, all the way up to the previous day's POC. And a lot of folks had actually left the room at the time. Hey, no surprise they had a good week. But I was sticking around, seeing if anything was going to develop. And we got a monster gift Thursday afternoon. So symmetrical neutral is now setting up. We're in an exhaustive move on the order flow footprint, in my opinion at least. And I'm looking to short this. Okay, so let's just see how this plays out. And I'm ready to click short. All right, so if we click play, and we're moving a little faster here in 4-minute clips, so just bear with me here as we rip through this. Okay, so here we are now. Symmetrical neutral has triggered. All right, I am short 63.25, looking for us to get back down inside of value. Many folks in the room took this short as well. Some were a little bit heavier in size. Okay, so we're taking a little bit of heat up here at 64, but we're pretty confident that symmetrical neutral is going to play out. Okay, double TPOs at the high. Ideally, we'd like to see 1 tick of those. Notice the singles had formed, but they hadn't confirmed at this point. So, we're short. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe some of us were nervous. And we're spending some time around up here. Okay, get back down under. Notice the black line of the singles went away. All right, we really want us to get back down inside of value. And there we go. See the value area pops up above, hopefully sucking in some long liquidation. We got, we took some 60 scales off 61s. I mean, ideally in this pattern, I want to see price completely traverse the other side of the profile. And believe it or not, that's basically what happened. So some of us, a couple folks in the room, took this trade quite large size and got paid huge on this. But we got the 59s off. And by the way, this is the beauty of symmetrical neutral, because look at this thing. All the way down. It was a fantastic trade for those that took it. So the point of this teaching is not to pat ourselves on the back, but to make sure everybody is aware of how powerful symmetrical neutral can be in terms of a trade setup. And you can see the delta for the day. I mean, it's pretty much dropped off the map versus the previous bars, capped with a decent sell side imbalance on that first rip to 63. Now, we had an exhaustive move, okay? Spent some time here coming into essentially cash close here, about 40 minutes before cash close, and got a notch missing down here at 56, so we were expecting that to be filled as far as the auctioning process, looking to take scales off of 56.25 if we were able to get filled down there. We'd already gotten paid quite nice on this trade. So like I said, just a total gift as far as this pattern developing, and took a little time, but we were actually expecting a much more significant amount of liquidation, potentially getting us back down towards the bottom of the day. So as we chopped up just above 56, came in, filled that missing notch, we're still, the buyers are still coming in at this point, trying to prop this up, and then a couple of buy programs hit as they had throughout the 3 previous bars. You guys can see all the red showing up. Volume breakdown was actually making new lows at this point. So in light of that, we were holding some runners for some of that home run hit that happened just before 4 o'clock and the cash close coming up here. So essentially, what can we glean from today? Well, recognize the power of symmetrical neutral. Also know that we can completely go back up. So I mean, it was a fantastic day for those that took the long at the bottom, which is basically a 1 tick of the IB trade. Okay, or took the symmetrical neutral short at the top or the short right off of the open. Ideally, if you had taken all three trades, you'd have had over a 20-point day, even if you'd gotten rotten executions and thrown market orders in on both sides of the profile. So, I mean, this thing, I mean, look at the volume just poured in here with all these black bracketed boxes. I mean, just monster volume coming in here. I mean, just an absolute liquidation of longs. You just gotta love this stuff. So, coming back down, I'm flat at this point. Those that were braver than I were holding to potentially a new low of day. I didn't really see that coming, but, you know, who knows at this point. Some of the data towards most of this choppiness inside the middle here was quite ambiguous, but you can see, look at these buy programs hit right after the cash close and so forth. All right, so let me fast forward through Globex on Friday. We'll finish this up real quick. Okay, so here we are coming into Friday, November 1st. And what do we see again? Overnight inventory, short. So what's our thesis? Same thing as Thursday. Essentially just looking for us to rip some shorts right off the open and potentially get a reversal. Okay. Now, at least I was in a play the extremes only mode. All right. I wasn't going to play any trades, get caught in the chop. I mean, obviously, you know, it's the day after Halloween, and you know, I figured it'd be somewhat of a dead day in the market. I was actually wrong. So, I mean, volume was on the lighter side, but we certainly had movement, and so let's just go ahead and play it out here. Notice I have session 2 as far as the footprint. A lot of times I'll switch off from session 31 to session 2 once the RTH period opens. Okay, so we're opening inside of range. And so far we're opening and auctioning inside of range. We're on high alert for a short here. Moving up into the POC. I mean, ideally I wanted to be short somewhere in the 60 to 61 area if we were to have gotten that gift. Beginning to correct some of the inventory out of balance to the short side here. Keep in mind, we're moving a little bit faster clips as far as playback. You guys can play this back as fast as you want, but a lot of times if you play it back too fast, you miss a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to potential reversals on the footprint as far as order flow. So looking at the order flow here, not really taking too much from it. Don't really see an edge, just letting it play out. And a bunch of news stories we wanted to kind of get past. And news came out favorable, but the market sold off in front of it. So looking at where we were, you know, starting to see some sell side imbalances here, both capping the tops of these footprint bars. I know a couple of people took a shot at the POC. I ideally wanted to see better prices up on a higher point. Okay, so here's the burst I'm looking for. Look at all the buy sides hit through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 just ripped us up. And this is the exact type of move we want to see as we come into the exhaustion levels. So bang, I'm short 61. Okay, not the most perfect setup on order flow, but we got a fast rejection away from it. So in my opinion, this was probably the luckiest fill I've gotten in a while. Okay, and it paid quite nicely. Took the 59s off, and we were taking scales literally every point down. Ideally want to get underneath 56. As you can see, that's the line in the sand as far as the footprint, and it just boom. So a great example both Thursday and Friday of corrections of overnight inventories. And this is why I always split the charts out and always pay attention to what's going on. That doesn't always have an impact, but as the market will set particular patterns up over periods of time, you know, kind of like most of the last 4 months, the pattern was to sell off into the 10 to 11 a.m. the hour New York time and then to grind up the rest of the day. Whereas this particular week, it was to take a look at the overnight inventory, and hopefully it corrects that, and you fade that initial move, which was fantastic. In this particular case, I had almost 7 points off on this trade, and took very little heat, if any, one tick. But some in the room waited for the next bar to print, and you know, quite frankly, it wasn't really telling us much. We actually had an incomplete auction up at the top of the next bar, so I was expecting us to go back up there at some point. But you know, at this time, you know, ideally we were looking to hold to see another test of the 50 area and a potential break lower. Okay, so I had, you know, some of my last trade size to get off just in front of 50 again, so I think it was set at 51 or 50 and 3/4 or something like that. And you know, it took a little while for us to get back down there. Had a bounce. No slingshots really showed up on this retrace back up here towards 56. But you know, ideally we want to try and get some movement underneath this all-important 50 area here. All right, so you can see the sort of zigzaggy higher lows that we're seeing here. No surprise, up against the developing POC. We actually popped above it for a little while. Slingshot formed right here as far as a retest. So those that took this slingshot got a nice shot to get on this trade because it paid again for them. So again, for the members watching this review, you know, always pay attention to those slingshots on these retests, because as you guys see from all these videos I shoot on YouTube, they have a ridiculously high win rate, provided they set up correctly. And I think that's the beauty of the trade signals being programmed into what's called the 5 range. So for those of you, and let me just stop this real quick because I know I'm going to get questions on this. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, this is the 5 range chart, okay? And it has a number of indicators on it and a number of what I call program trade signals. You don't always take all these. There's some nuances that come with taking these trade signals. Ideally, the first stab or first retrace after a big reversal, and in this particular case, we had a reversal up at 61. You know, obviously dropped all the way down to 53 area before we popped back up to the 57 area, thus by definition being a retrace, in which case the single will show up. And typically the first, second, and in some cases the third singles, they all work in many cases. They have a win rate of well over 85%, given that they are taken in the right context. Okay, context like I only see these signals and only take them during an RTH session, whether it be with the ES or the 6E chart. Okay, and I will only take them with the direction of the trend. If the trend has made a huge reversal, okay, notice once we reversed off the top here, and actually, you know, let me just drop this down a little bit further so you guys can see it. Notice when we had dropped down from the top here and reversed off this, no slingshot showed up, okay, because the indicators had told, the software was sensing that with the order flow that something had changed up at the top here, okay. And you can see by the colors of each of these candles inside here will tell the power, if you will, of the underlying volume that moves it. So oftentimes the software will see that, well, maybe that's not right, and you know, there wasn't, but we saw some pretty serious delta divergence at the top, and we'll, you know, coming back down. I don't want to take, you know, that first slingshot long, but notice the pullback here on our rise up, and keep in mind that was you know, right off the open. It was essentially a nice slingshot. So, and that's on a session 31 time. So just getting back to the footprint here, okay. At the top at 61, you know, ideally you want to see, you know, some sort of sell side imbalance, albeit this wasn't really that large. You know, it wasn't really a lot of data, and I really wasn't looking for that to show itself. What was most important to me is that we got that flashy, exhaustive move I'm always talking about, and we did. And then we ripped, we had spikes, We blew out stops. So as I often teach members to think like an algo, what do the algos typically do? Vast majority of algos out there written today are stop hunting algos. They're set up to terrorize retail traders. So if you want to think like an algo, you can, you see these types of moves, and idea is to just fade them. And you may not have been quick on the executions, and that's fine. You guys will very rarely ever hear me talk about execution quality. Sure, you can set limit orders up there and do all this stuff, but most of these algos front run all these big areas anyway. So you're going to want to be way ahead of these areas, in some cases 4 full ticks in my opinion, to try and get on the ride. All I care about is the ride. I'm not as concerned about execution quality, which is maybe a bad trait that I have, and something I certainly want to try and work on, but I just want to be on the coattails of these algos, okay? And for the bigger moves, and I don't want to get caught in the chop. So a lot of times we'll sit on our hands. So if we go back, let's just play the rest of this out and see how much more love we get, if any. Alright, so I'm still looking for us to break underneath 51, and ultimately want to see us get underneath 50. Alright, so at this particular point, a good chunk of us are flat, including myself. I actually just decided to flatten up right here because I was getting ready to take off. But you can see we actually extended down a little bit further. Now notice also here, look at the exhaustive length of this bar, okay? When you see something like this, just a all-out long liquidation, you can actually fade this type of move. And, sort of a, wow, we've just blown all the stops out, I'm going to take a long. Now, granted, this was an incomplete auction down here at the bottom, but look at the size that came in down here. So you really had, if you were quick, you could have jumped in and taken that long. You can always fade these huge moves, okay? But you want them to exhaust themselves, and ideally in a perfect world, you want to see the next bar retest the low of that. Oftentimes that's not the case, okay? Now you really don't want all these bars to go by and see, and then you continue to get away from that area, and then you're getting longer at a much higher point. I'm not advocating that, but we had a singles form at 52.25. So as we're coming into the close of Europe here, I figured we'd start to see a lighten up of volume. A number of us in the room, actually I think there's about 10 people that took this trade, really got paid on this, and it's pretty much it. We're going to call it a week. So that's kind of it for the review. I'm not going to go through the rest of Friday. You guys can continue to forward if you want. This video is already getting too long a length anyway. But if you guys have any questions on any of our online programs or any of the stuff we do, you could just send me an email, steve@fxestrader.com. Thanks guys for joining us. Have a great weekend.